For those of you who are just joining us for the first time, which I think there might be a few folks, welcome. You are at the 2020 Collaborative Journalism Summit. Yay. So this is our second plenary session of the summit, and I'm Stephanie Murray, the director of the Center for Cooperative Media at Montclair State University, and I'm really glad that you're here. So we have already had some wonderful and really inspiring conversations already today. And next, we're going to turn our attention to the pandemic that we're in and collaborative efforts to cover the new coronavirus and COVID-19, the disease that it causes. So a few housekeeping notes, if you are just joining us or if you were doing something else and weren't paying attention last session. So we are moderating and keeping the chat active, and we hope that you will do the same. Please use it to talk to each other, drop notes, ideas, thoughts. We really want to keep the chat active and make it useful for you during this session. But note that if you have any questions for the panelists, please use the Q&A box for those. We'll get to as many as we can at the end of the conversation with the panelists. And if there's any that any of our panelists can answer live as we're going, we'll do that too. So that's what you'll use to drop your questions to the panelists. Note also that you'll see from time to time our graphic illustrator, Derek Dent, who is doing live graphic illustrations of every session at the Collaborative Journalism Summit. And afterward, we will be sharing all of his slides with everyone. And he did fantastic work during our first session. If you didn't see his illustration, it looked awesome. Another thing to note too, and we'll drop this in the chat as well, is there's been a lot of activity on our Padlet today. That's where we're hosting an asks and offers board. So we'll drop that link in the chat and make sure that you go there and check it out. If you've got a job you're hiring for, or if you've got some skills you want to share or anything else, we ask you to do it there instead of the chat. So with that, let's get to it. So our coronavirus discussion today will include some brief presentations representing 4 really unique ways that news organizations are working together around the globe to improve service to their communities in covering the coronavirus and the pandemic that we're in. After those presentations, our host will take some questions, and then we will go to audience Q&A. So I think all of our speakers are here except one. So Cristina may be joining us in just a moment, but we're going to go ahead and get started now and hope that she gets into the panel. So I'd like to introduce our host, Taylor Mulcahey. So Taylor is IJNet editor for the International Center for Journalists, and she's going to introduce our panelists. Taylor manages the content, social media, and audience engagement of the International Journalists Network, which is a project of ICFJ. And ICFJ, if you don't know, there have been fantastic partners to the center, and they do amazing work around the world. And they've been involved in quite a few different collaborations. So Taylor, with that, take it away. The floor is yours.
There we go. All right. Well, thank you, Stephanie. And yeah, so like Stephanie mentioned, I am the editor for IJNet. You know, we publish in 8 or 7, soon to be 8 languages. And we really do provide opportunities and resources for journalists around the world. And what we've noticed in doing this work over the last few years is that journalists everywhere are looking for new ways to tell stories. And we know that collaborative projects are one way to make that happen, especially to make things happen that you probably otherwise wouldn't have been able to do. I think especially now in the midst of the pandemic, that these collaborations have become even more critical. So I'm excited to be here talking to everyone about those. We've been publishing a number of resources on our website for journalists working, you know, during this pandemic, during these unprecedented circumstances. And together with our parent organization, ICFJ, we also launched the Global Health Crisis Reporting Forum to connect journalists with sources and also just encourage them to do this exact work, to be collaborate across newsrooms and, you know, across borders as well. So we're supporting and encouraging the types of projects that all of these panelists exemplify. So I'm excited to, you know, jump in and hear about what everyone's working on. So on today's panel, we have Tina Griego, managing editor of the Denver-based nonprofit newsroom, the Colorado Independent; Sarah Alvarez, founder and editor of Outlier Media in Detroit; Cristina Tardáguila, associate director of Poynter's International Fact-Checking Network; and Kathy Best, director of the Howard Center for Investigative Journalism at the University of Maryland. So like we said, they'll each take a turn introducing their work, and then we'll jump into questions, both from me, and then we'll make time for our questions from the audience as well. So Tina, I think we can start with you.
Okay, I believe I am now unmuted.
Perfect.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here. I was actually thinking before this started, I hope I'm not first, but I am. So I'm here I am the managing editor of the Colorado Independent, and I'm here to talk to you about COVID Diaries Colorado, an enormous collaborative project that brought together more than 20 newsrooms to tell the story of one day in the life of Colorado and Coloradans during the pandemic. To set the stage for this, our story in Colorado is not dissimilar to stories elsewhere across the country in which the newsrooms have been decimated, right? We've lost almost 1 in 5 newsrooms since 2004. The ranks of reporting staff have shrunk. I say shrunk, it's been a bloodbath. And so as resources diminish, staffing diminishes, there has been increasing conversation around how do we work together? How do we start to kind of marshal our combined energy where it's possible? And collaboration had begun already in kind of nascent form in the state, on and off, but particularly in the last year, there were some more organic, smaller efforts to share work. There was a larger effort, a couple of them actually led by larger newsrooms in which multiple newsrooms were involved, but not at the scale we're talking about. And there was newsrooms, about 10 newsrooms involved in an emerging nonprofit called the Colorado News Collaborative, which we're calling CoLab. CoLab is both a physical place, a kind of center of gravity where multiple newsrooms will come together this fall. It's also a mission in which we're looking for cross-pollination. We're looking for opportunities to work together. So this is all happening in the background. And then of course the pandemic hits, and it is a precipitating event. It is an event that is the largest story in our lifetimes. And I've been doing this for a really long time. So we're trying to figure out what's the best way to do this. What was really remarkable about this is this conversation that started among 10 newsrooms is bubbling. We have a Slack channel through CoLab. We meet on Zoom, and it's the Brady Bunch times 10 images. And we're starting to talk about what is a story that we can all work on together, where we each take our individual strengths, the needs of our individual audiences, and we tell a compelling story that allows Coloradans to do something that's really impossible to do in the kind of flood of information that came around coronavirus, and that is get a panoramic view. How can we offer a panoramic view? How can we allow people to take a glimpse into the lives of others and see how it all connects, see what the ripple effects have been? And out of that came the idea for focusing on a single day, April 16th, and sending out reporters under the constraints of reporting now, and finding people whose lives we could document over the course of a day and then weave into a master narrative. The amazing thing is that we pulled it off. I mean, there are 20 newsrooms, there were 60 stories, and not just stories. There was we asked everyone who participated to create a video diary through the day, and people really responded to that, the people we were interviewing. So, we had an ICU doc whose patients were all on ventilators, and he's recording through the day what's happening with him, what he's seeing around him. We have parents who are battling COVID and they just had twins, and they're talking about not being able to see their babies right away. We had a pastor who was really struggling with how can he minister when he can't physically be in the presence of his flock, and in fact was still holding services, albeit 10 at a time. And this range of lives from across the state. And we pulled this together in less than a month, where all of the newsrooms are doing their thing. They're all focusing on their people. There's a master sheet in which we kind of brainstorm what are the key people we want to hit, the key kind of, whether it's a hospital, whether it's a school, a pastor, someone in the undocumented community, all of these. And then that way we could all look together as newsrooms, and we could all say, okay, well, we've got duplication here, we've got a hole here, who can take this hole? We'll take that hole. And then got to work and filed 60 different pieces well, there's a couple of things. We filed 60 different pieces. A key part of this was the AP has a platform called StoryShare, which is, it's still kind of piloting it. Wonderful tool. It allowed us all to put all of our work, including the video diaries and photographs and graphics, into that single platform so that we could begin to pull from it to build our own packages. We also had a Google spreadsheet. Okay, I'm going to try and show you a slide of kind of one of the master lists that came out of it. There were multiple master lists as we work through this. And I may be able to do this. I make no promises.
We'll get you there. Don't worry.
All right. Can you see it?
Not yet, but we'll let you know when you can.
Okay, share. Oh, did that work?
There you go. You're good.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so this is actually one piece of, because we couldn't do all of the newsrooms, I couldn't fit them all into the slider. But if you look at this, you can see there's this range of players. So we had some of the powerhouses of state journalism, right? We had the Denver Post, we had Colorado Public Radio, we had Channel 9 News. Those are the big players on the landscape. And then we also had tiny outlets. Colorado Independent is very small. We had the Denver Urban Spectrum. We had the Arkansas Ark Valley Voice, which has 5 people and produced, I don't know, I want to say like 10 different stories. They followed 10 different people. All of this was kind of uploaded over time with the links to the story. And if you could go further, you would see the assets, whether it be video diaries or the photographs. And what was cool about this is that all of the stuff gets uploaded, and then each newsroom could use it as a toolbox. They could use what they wanted to use. Everyone, I believe everyone ran the master story, which that was done by Eric Gorski at Chalkbeat. It was edited by Laura Frank, who was air traffic control, and the editor of this project. And there was a master story that was kind of different sizes that everyone could use. Obviously, when you're writing about 60 different people, even at our word limit, which was a painful 350 words, you can't get everyone in there, but people could take their own stories and write them longer for their sites. They could go through and they could pluck out audio diaries. Chalkbeat, for example, went through this whole list, and they just put together a package that was all around education. We could create our own landing pages. CoLab also created a landing page, and a beautiful landing page that opened up. This image was for one of the stories, and it would kind of rotate. Below this image on the landing page was a map, an interactive map. And get this, Open Media Foundation did this map. This miracle worker named Shruti did it in a week, where that spreadsheet you saw fed the map, and you could scroll around to the different counties in Colorado, click on it, and then a drop down similar to what you see would appear. And then you could read the story, and you could also listen to the videos as well. I do want to break here actually just to give you, we created for our marketing purposes, I feel like I'm talking really fast, I'm sorry. But we created for marketing purposes just a collage of, CoLab did, a Colorado Media Project, a collage of videos in which all of us were asked to ask our participants 3 questions or 4 questions. And this question was about the hardest day. What's the hardest thing about this? And so if I could get some help with the video, that would be awesome. So it's not very long, it's 1.5 minutes, but you can get a sense of what those video diaries added to this project. Oh, is it coming up? There we go.
April 16th, it's a Thursday, and on days like this, these are the harder days, because even though it's bright out, it is cold, snowy, rainy, and are we going outside today? No. And so we spend the day in the house, in our pajamas.
My biggest challenge was probably how do I help my staff? And, we're essential, so we're coming to work when many of the people around them are not.
I think the hardest part for me is hugging. I'm a hugger. I love my customers.
The other question about it for me, I think, is just maintaining the appropriate physical distance that needs to be done during this time. That's so difficult because we're in a people business. I've been pastoring for 30 years, and it's about people.
The hardest parts for me is just to have been able to go to Costa Rica, where I am from, and see my family.
I mean, the hardest thing is really just the pain and suffering of the people of Colorado, the people of America, and the people of the world.
It's the day after my dad's funeral. The fact that I could not hug my brother, I could not hug my mom, I could not hug my siblings or my friends that I haven't seen for a long time.
Right now, these are some of the hardest days I've had. And I feel that I can't go home and I can't hold my daughter without possibly putting her at risk.
Great. So that gives you a sense of the power of the video diary and the ways in different outlets, again, use them in different ways. People could, from across the state, could just click in, and it's a chance. In a story that can be overwhelming, it presented the whole project, the way the collaboration came together, the way that it married strength and weaknesses, but we buttressed each other's weaknesses, we worked with each other's strengths, we respected each other's audiences. The way it helped to bring a kind of immediacy and intimacy and connection to a story that's overwhelming. So I can talk more about it, but I think my time's up.
Yeah, thank you so much. That really gave such a great overview. I'm glad we got the video to work because it was definitely
thank you.
Definitely
Yes.
worth it to see. So now I think we'll go to Cristina. I think you won't be able to stay the whole time, but hopefully you can at least give us a little bit of a sense of what your project looks like. So Cristina, we can pass it over to you.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I hope you can see me. I'm sorry I'm having a hard day. I just had a small surgery, so I'll do my best. Well, I'm the associate director at the International Fact-Checking Network, and I am in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I'm now coordinating the biggest alliance that fact-checkers have ever done. We are now working together as a group of 88 organizations around the world, meaning in 74 countries. And since January 24, when we first heard that this weird virus was probably causing deaths, and we had, at least by that time, 17 people had already died by that time. We knew already the hoaxes about it was already spreading in Asia. And we decided that from the IFCN, it was time to coordinate a group of fact checkers to see if we could do something together from different countries. And so I made a call. I talked to fact checkers through our Google group, listserv. I talked to people on our Slack, and that same day, again back in January 24, we realized that we had at least 30 countries already hearing, seeing, and reading bad content about a virus that we didn't know a lot about. So it's been almost, 5 months since we've been working together. And this group of people now has a name. It's the Coronavirus Facts Alliance. It is, as I said, the largest effort ever done by the fact-checking community worldwide. And we managed to create this amazing database of 5,000 and more than 500 hoaxes that have been debunked around this thing that we're calling a monster of disinformation. Just to give you a comparison, the second largest collaborative projects among fact checkers happened in Argentina in 2019, with 150 media outlets, and it lasts for 10 months. And they managed to debunk about 200 pieces of misinformation. So 200 pieces in 10 months against less than 5 months and more than 5,000 pieces of misinformation in, again, 74 countries and in 43 different languages. And we have learned so much working together. First is that when you work together, you really notice that you are all fighting against this one big thing. There's no competition. Competition does not make sense at all in the world that we live in. We know journalism is facing a hard time. We know everything about ads. We know layoffs and stuff. And when we work together, we are stronger, we are faster, we are more accurate. And it doesn't make sense to have newspaper A going against newspaper B. It's much better to work together and collaborate. So from this big database that is growing every day, and we're adding about 100, 150 new debunked hoaxes to this database, we have created some very beautiful products. The first one is a landing page where you can see graphs, and you can see beautiful graphs. And I probably can share my screen if I have time for that. And just a second, I think I can do that. Yes, did I share well? I hope so.
Did great.
Okay, cool. So here is the landing page. It's on Poynter. Oh, I'm sorry. I had it, but somehow I deleted it. There you go. You're going to see the landing page, and I'm going to make it smaller. And this goes up. I would love to show you this because this is pretty. This is a word map of the fact checking. And let's say you want to see, this is everything that has been done, we have done, and you have filters. So let's see, you want to know the 5G conspiracy, where in the planet it happened. Or let's see, you want to see Clorox, where it appeared, right? And that's quite interesting. You have other topics you can choose by categories or by fact checker. Let's say you are very interested, let's say you're in the United States, you can always choose for PolitiFact or MediaWise. And if we scroll down, I would love to show you this. These are the categories. Also, you can search, and let's say garlic, because a lot of people think garlic can cure, right? And then you see how many fact checks were done in that certain topic, and you can see the different categories, and you can see which ones are getting bigger and which ones are getting smaller during the time. And you can also see this great graphic that shows how misinformation has grown during the time, and I hope it keeps going down because we're all so tired. And the latest thing I wanted to show you is that by collaborating, we were able to do, let's move this here. We were able to just launch a WhatsApp bot. I know the United States is not a heavy user of WhatsApp, but it's a number that people can, oh God, it's very slow. I'm sorry for that. Oh, maybe I'm not going to be able to show that.
We got time. Go ahead. You're good.
Okay. Okay, it's here. I just wanted to show you this because I'm very, very proud of the work we're doing together. Factcheckers now have this beautiful thing. Those of you who have are heavy WhatsApp users, if you type a number, and I can share the number later with you all on WhatsApp, you're going to have this bot, and you can talk to it. And let's say you have somebody telling you that a mask causes hypoxia. That's something that is big right now. And the bot, I can type hypoxia, and then I hope I spell it right. And then it's going to bring me the last results. And since I am based in the United States, it will first show me a fact checker from the United States. So it says the false claim. This was the claim that was fact checked by this organization, the day, and the explanation why it is false. And you can always go to the URL and you're going to read content in English. But the second, I still get more content, and this is coming from La Silla Vacilla. It is in Colombia, and the same thing, and now we read in Spanish. So, and there's more information you can get out of this great collaboration, and this bot is you can read the latest fact checks here. You can see, you type 2, you go to the menu, you type 2, you're just gonna see what is the latest fact checks. And again, since I am in the United States and my phone is a +1, I will get first content that has been fact checked in our region. So I'm gonna get factcheck.org, and then I'm gonna get the latest that has been updated to our international database. And I can, of course, dial, I don't know if many of you know that I am Brazilian. This is why my English sounds funny, and I forgive myself for that. I apologize for that. So I can change the country, and I can see stuff from my country, and I can type Brazil and change and see any other information from any other country. And there I get stuff from other regions. And well, you can do a lot more. I'm interrupting this so we can talk a little bit more. So the idea of collaborating brings us so many opportunities of not only getting fact checkers together, but also creating products that are strong enough, visually speaking, technologically speaking, to be used in different platforms. The link to the bot, somebody's asking, is quite easy. It's poy.nu/IFCN bot, IFCN chat bot. It is quite easy. I can write that in a bit. And the link to the alliance, I can also write for you. And the beautiful thing is that the database that has been updating, we have been updating every day. It is growing. Fortunately, the hoaxes are not stopping. And we have been able to tell the different waves of misinformation that has been going around the planet. And we have detected at least 7 waves. The first one, and I really hope you didn't get all of them, but I'm almost sure you did. So I'm just gonna go over them very quickly. The first one is about the origin of the virus. So you probably heard that the bat soup caused the virus, or Bill Gates, or a lab in China, or a lab in the United States. That's one reason. Then the second reason, the second wave was about like edited videos, people fainting in subways, supermarkets, but actually they were just having heart attacks, or, you know, they were drunk. And then a third wave, which is very, very dangerous right now, is fake cures and fake preventative measures. We really need to find a way to fight that together. And then the fourth wave was how everything related to China, an anti-China movement, really based in untruth content. The fifth wave, then the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh wave are not related to health at all. And the fifth wave is based on supremacies. And we can see like how Muslims think that they are protected because they are Muslims, Black people thinking they are better equipped to fight COVID because their blood is better. In the sixth wave, you see all the questions on all the doubts related to lockdown, what is working, what is not working, and what can you do, what you can't do. And the seventh and last wave, which is very heavy right now everywhere, is the politicization around the virus. So either coming out of politicals' mouths, but also about the politicians. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm here for any questions. Thank you very much. And I'll drop the links in the chat if that's possible. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Cristina. That was incredible. I was playing with the bot a little bit last night, and I'm definitely going to be using it some more. So yeah, so if we can just pass it, Sarah, can we pass it to you? If you can just give us a little presentation about the work that you're doing.
Sure. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here. I wish I could see you, but I can't. I can only see myself, as is always happening these days, which I hate. Okay, that was incredible. I feel really lucky to be learning about this other work. So I'm Sarah Alvarez. I'm the editor of Outlier Media in Detroit. I'm going to just tell you guys a little bit about what our approach to work and collaboration was before COVID-19, and then how we've changed that to respond to this moment. And we have changed a lot, but a lot of what we do is remaining the same and is really based on these collaborative principles. Alrighty. Here we go. So let me just make sure I'm in present mode. Okay. So this is how I see what Detroit's essential journalism ecosystem would be. It's not necessarily what exists, right? There are a lot of other functions too that happen that are important, but this is what I see as kind of like what has to be in a community and what has to be done by journalists in particular. And I think that that's filling information gaps, doing enterprise and investigative work, creating an accurate record, correcting an inaccurate or incomplete record, which is especially important in a place like Detroit, where stories are often written about what goes on here, but not from the perspective of the people who live here, and not necessarily including their voices. Connection of community is, I think, a very important role, and explanatory work. So that's like what we wanted to see. Okay, sorry. So before coronavirus, our model was kind of like journalism can be used as an intervention, because information gaps do cause real harm. They cause disproportionate harm to people who are marginalized. And they reveal really serious accountability gaps. And also the news industry is in part responsible for creating these information gaps by targeting a particular customer. And that particular customer and that desired news consumer is generally white and generally affluent. If you live in a place like Detroit, where it's not very white and it's not very affluent, you're gonna have a lot of really important and severe information gaps. So our goal was to fill those, reduce that harm, and increase accountability to Detroiters. And we did that by filling information gaps around housing and utilities, which were Detroiters' two biggest information gaps, and we have a responsive SMS news service. We've always done the investigative work and the watchdog work in partnership with local and national news organizations. We didn't have our own publishing platform, we still don't, so it's always something that we've done collaboratively. Also, like, we've been around since 2016, and it's something that, like, as somebody newer on the scene, we didn't have all of those that competitive baggage. So we've also been able to be kind of a hub through which people collaborate, and collaborate with people that they might not always have collaborated with. Then in March, coronavirus really started hitting Detroit, and COVID has been devastating to our community, the health effects, and of course the economic effects, but mostly the health effects. We've lost more than 1,000 people in Detroit. So we wanted to respond to that first by finding out what people felt like they needed to know. So way back in mid-March, we did an information needs study that's just very quick and dirty over text message. We didn't look at the data work. We are really very familiar with what Detroit data says about people's needs. So we just launched this quick and easy SMS survey. You can take it by texting Corona to 73224 to find out what that's like. If you also want to see the responsive news product that we developed in part based on those results, you just text Detroit to that number and you will see our news product and you can navigate through it. So yeah, we completely retooled. We were really starting to move away from the SMS work, but especially in a time when people are not going out and we really don't know how people are getting their news, we felt like we really needed to be where they were, and that was on their phones. What's been amazing is that through this collaboration, the journalism ecosystem is filling all of these essential functions. We are working with a variety of news organizations. We're formally working with Bridge Detroit, Chalkbeat, The Free, Detour, Planet Detroit, the Michigan Chronicle. We're working less formally with WDT. And more, right? NBC, like there's a lot of people who we're working with right now, and we are doing all of these things because we're all very committed to getting Detroiters the information that they need. And I also wanted to just say, like, we are really trying to use our old approach of trying to address information gaps rather than chase breaking news. We are looking for breaking information gaps, not breaking news. And I think that that's what we've been able to do by running this, this thing. I just want to show you guys kind of what this looks like on our end. We use a service called Reach out of North Carolina to run our SMS platform. This is what we see when people text in. This is like the back end. And this is how we keep track of all of those text messages. This is an example of like what is so simple, really. This collaboration is built on trust. We actually have 0 MOUs because this is all happening too fast. We are everybody's working together. I think we're subsidizing a lot of this work in that we're spending our money on this increased volume, and we are staffing it. But so are other people. So for example, Aaron is a wonderful reporter. He's working with us. I just told somebody, like, he's gonna follow up with you because this person's had their rent increased, and it points to a bigger issue in that there are very few federally backed mortgages in Detroit because there's very few mortgages, which means very few people are protected by the CARES Act, and that means that they can have their rent raised. So this is like something that's important to write about and put on that record. 5G back in the news from the last presentation, right? This is something we saw at the beginning, and we were getting a lot of questions about it. So we asked Nina at Planet Detroit if she could look into it and debunk that for us so that we could send it out, but also create a record of it. this is just like one of our, again, very low tech. This is what we keep between the reporters who are working on this. There's 3 of us working on it. It's how we keep track of people that we haven't followed up with yet. I don't know why that's not going. I don't know. This is just some of the investigative stuff that we have been able to start to work on. The disparate impact of COVID in senior living facilities, not nursing homes, but HUD apartments. So this is like how, again, we're throwing this to Lewis from Bridge Detroit, a wonderful reporter. And that is a relationship now that this person's gonna have with that news organization, and that story is gonna get told. This is another one about workplace safety. I mean, they're just coming at us. The FREEP has been publishing a lot of these stories. I think maybe the thing I couldn't show you was me and their like kind of Slack-ish system talking about how to throw stories to them and which ones they wanted. This is a super important issue. It was a front page story for them. There's an eviction ban, but it doesn't cover people who live in hotels, which is a lot of people in Metro Detroit, and it doesn't cover Airbnbs either. Same thing about the food pantry supply channels, whether or not they're going to be able to catch up with this demand. I don't know why some of these don't go. So just again, the numbers, we've texted 150,000 people since April 1st. There's 3 of us. It's about 70 hours a week combined. Right now, at the beginning, it was much more. So we've texted one-on-one with over 3,000 people as of this morning. The outcomes, I think, are super important because we're helping people to feed their families and get tested and file for unemployment and stop illegal evictions. But we're also doing some of that work to help people tell these bigger stories about how truth in sentencing is keeping people who have been paroled in prison despite the toll of the disease there and the uncontrolled spread. We're doing this work also with some other folks who are also working collaboratively, so that's exciting. We helped Wisconsin Watch and NNS, Neighborhood News Service. Okay, y'all, okay, there we go. I want to stop sharing my screen. We helped them launch a responsive news project and in Milwaukee, and we're doing similar information needs studies with a data component in Memphis and Stockton and Central Georgia. And so it's really, we're doing it to be helpful, and it's a very good way to start these collaborations because there's so much work to do, right? And it just doesn't, there's really, our relationships in Detroit are built on trust and mutual respect. And I think, like has been said already today, a lot of that does exist in the journalism space, but there's also, I know, a lot of competition when there's so much work on the table, and when it's really like, are you gonna leave this person hanging? Are you gonna leave that story out there? It really incentivizes people to just get to work and get over it. Because I think most of us, when we see somebody who has a real information need and a real story that needs to see the light, we're just gonna get over it and we're just gonna start working. So that's what we've been doing. We plan to keep it up. We're gonna add more languages. Because it's a follow-up thing, we have the ability to translate our messages very easily, but we need reporters who can follow up and have those in-depth conversations with people. So we were able to get a Facebook grant, and we're going to be working in Arabic and Spanish starting very soon. So that's very exciting. And I think we had these strong relationships with people and organizations before this pandemic. I truly believe that the relationships that we built during this time are going to transform the way that we work after this, because of necessity, but also because of the trust building that has been happening, like on, you know, times 1,000 right now because of necessity. So that's it, and I'm very happy to answer questions and share any resources that we have. And if you guys find things that are helpful in our news service and you want to pull some of those, especially the health and safety stuff that's not necessarily local. So if you want to take some of those resources, let me know and we'll find a way to get them to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. Yeah, all of this work has been like so inspiring from everyone. So yeah, there's so much to get through. I know people have started dropping questions. Definitely continue to do that. We'll get to those after everyone has presented their work. So yeah, continue to drop those in the Q&A. And now, Kathy, so if you can tell us about your project and what you're working on.
You bet. Taylor, you stole my line. It has been so inspiring listening to the work of my colleagues, and I plan to steal a lot of it. So I'm Kathy Best. I'm the director of the Howard Center for Investigative Journalism at the University of Maryland, which is a really long title, and I need to work on that. I've been in that job almost a year, and one of the reasons that I left newspapers to take it was the opportunity to collaborate. And we collaborated when I was working in newsrooms, but it was added value. It didn't feel like it was core to the mission. Here in this job, it's very much core to the mission. Not only do we collaborate within the College of Journalism, making sure that we're working with people who have expertise in all of the platforms, from social media to video to data, especially data, web design. We collaborate across colleges. I get to tap into the expertise of people who are working in the School of Public Health or the College of Engineering, and bring their expertise into the journalism that we're doing. We also collaborate with nonprofit organizations, and we collaborate with professional journalism partners because, face it, the website of the University of Maryland is not exactly a destination. So if we want to get the journalism that we're doing out into the broader world, we have to create partnerships. Right out of the gate, and so I'm going to back up a little bit and tell you how we began doing what we do, leading to the COVID project that we'll be launching June 1st. Last summer when I started, right out of the gate, we worked with NPR, a Baltimore television station, and an organization called Wide Angle Youth Media in Baltimore, which teaches inner city kids how to tell their own stories. And we did that. We shared data, we shared technology, we shared on-the-ground reporting and visual reporting so that we could show the impact that climate change was having on the lives of people who lived in inner cities, and that they would bear the brunt of some of the global warming changes. And one of the ways that we did that, to underscore that collaboration point, is, we built sensors, our students built sensors that measured heat and humidity, and they placed those sensors in the row houses of people who lived in the hottest neighborhood in Baltimore. They built the sensors using advice and counsel and the 3D printers from the College of Engineering at Maryland. And they provided readings that became an incredible storytelling device. And just a minor point, but an important one. We got a grant from ONA so that we can share the technology, and if groups really need help, we can even build sensors for them so that they can tell their own stories, so that they can do measurements in their own communities. So if anybody's interested, let me know. Anyway, so that was published last fall. We then launched into a collaboration this spring with 6 universities across the country to do deep dives into the criminalization of homelessness and the different ways that cities around the country were we're handling encampments. That work's going to be published in June. But what we learned in doing that was that the root cause of all of the homeless problems around the country came back to affordable housing. We had planned to do an affordable housing project this summer around homelessness, but when the pandemic showed up, we pivoted. And so we are now working with 5 other universities examining, what the economic crash that has been caused by the pandemic is going to do to people who were already living on the edge. I mean, there was an affordable housing crisis in the United States for working class families, many of whom were already paying more than 1/3 of their income on rent. That is only going to get worse, and we know that. We also know, because of the work we did this spring, that cities with the highest homeless rates already don't have adequate shelter space for people who don't have a home right now. We know that's going to get worse. So we're working with Stanford, the University of Oregon, Arizona State University, the University of Arkansas, and Boston University. And we know that by joining forces with them, we can gather more data, file more FOIAs, and especially at a time when travel is restricted, report from locations from coast to coast, which we could not do on our own. This sort of virtual nationwide reporting team is going to examine housing policies and eviction laws, collect court records, talk with renters and landlords on the ground. We're going to concentrate on cities where people were spending, as I said, half their income on rent and utilities before they lost their jobs. AP has agreed to distribute our work from the spring and from the summer project. We also just finalized an agreement with Reveal to work with us on the housing project. Our sister center, the Howard Center for Investigative Journalism at Arizona State, is planning a separate COVID-related project this summer. We're working together. We'll be coordinating. We're supplying them with some of our data from the spring to help support their project. They're going to focus on, it'll be an accountability story that's focused on the public health response by local governments to the spread of the virus among sheltered and unsheltered homeless people across the country. ASU's work is part of a class. The University of Maryland's project is being done by paid student interns. Both of the work of both Howard Centers is supported by grants that we got from the Scripps Howard Foundation, and then we got an additional grant from the Pulitzer Center to help pay for the work of some of our college partners. One more note, and then I'll stop talking and gladly answer questions. Because of the pandemic, internships for journalism students from coast to coast have dried up and been canceled. So there are a lot of talented students out there looking for work. And if any of you have projects and need help, we would be happy to help connect you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kathy. All right, so I think what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna take a few questions. I'm trying to also incorporate the Q&A and what everyone is asking into my questions as well. And then we'll definitely just focus on those for a little stretch at the end. So I wanted to first just talk about resources. You know, I know this is something that obviously a lot of newsrooms are thinking about. So many newsrooms are strapped for cash. And so many people want to be able to try new things, but you know, don't necessarily feel like they have the resources, whether that's, you know, the staff or, you know, the finances to do that. So I know some of you guys have talked a little bit about it, but how are you able to pull off your collaborations? And especially as you had to pivot so quickly to focusing on COVID-19. So do you think, you know, do you think there were extra resources you really had to, put into this? And do you think that that's something that's really doable for other newsrooms around the world? I don't know who wants to start with that. Is there anyone who thinks they have a good answer there?
I can.
Okay, perfect. I was like, no one knows how to do it. No, go ahead.
It's gonna sound a little crazy, Taylor, but until March, so the collaboration among fact checkers has started, as I said, January 24, and until March 16, we didn't get any money at all. We did it because we knew it was the right thing to do. And we used the computers we had, the staff we had, the designers we had, and we started doing it, right? And but we felt like we're doing something so right that it would call attention, and it did. And it's interesting to see that's the second time in my life I take that crazy step. Back in Brazil, I'm a fact checker. I've been a fact checker for 7 years, and I did the same thing. I don't know how much of Brazilian politics you follow, but back in 2015, we had an impeachment process, and there was no fact checking in Brazil by then. So I said, we need a fact checker. So I opened a company, no money, 4 friends, and now the company has 15 people. And sometimes I know this sounds crazy, but sometimes you just need to start and the money will come. I know it sounds crazy, but it's my tip.
Yeah, does anyone else have anything to add to that? And I kind of want to...
Yeah,
go ahead, Tina. No, please.
So this may change in the future, but one of the great things about this collaboration is that we were all able to use existing resources. I mentioned CoLab, the emerging nonprofit, has project manager in Laura Frank. So there did need to be an air traffic control that was supported by an organization that believes local news is a public good. And so that helped build the infrastructure around the organization of it. What we were all encouraged to do, and I think everyone did, whether we were nonprofit or for-profit, is use this unprecedented collaboration to fundraise, to say to readers, this is the fruit of our labor, and it is done with you, and it is done for your benefit, and we want to do more. So help us do more. And the audience response, someplace like Channel 9, again, the powerhouse, they had an incredible response to the package of stories that they put together. We had we had funds coming in that people donated to us, and I think in the future we'll be able to kind of marshal again what we have and build something bigger and stronger out of what we have, fundraise off of it, and look toward perhaps a foundation world again. No one wants to exist at the mercy of a foundation, but foundations play an incredible role right now in that networking and bringing together of matching funds in particular. So that's what I would say to that. It can be done.
Yeah, that's great. And that also is kind of, goes along with one of my other questions that I had is, all of you guys talked about receiving funding from either grants, from donors, or either fundraising within your audience. So have you noticed, and I know you're starting to mention that even, but have you noticed that these are things that funders are looking for? They, people are interested in seeing these types of things. Yeah, and Kathy, did you have something for that?
I was just going to say, one of the things that we noticed, the reason that we applied for a Pulitzer Center grant, is there were a lot of people out there who are looking for COVID-related projects to fund. And excuse me, the other good thing that's happening, I think, in the world generally is that there's just a lot more money available for any kind of collaborative project, that funders have figured out, you know, that they get more for their money when they fund a collaboration.
Yeah, that's great. So it's kind of shifting away from money, although we could probably have a lot more questions to talk about with that. But, you know, also just looking at processes. So, you know, Cristina, you're working on a fact-checking with fact-checkers from 74 different countries. I mean, Kathy, you're working with, you know, newsrooms and students just spread across, you know, the states. And you know, everyone's doing something with it. These projects are so big. I mean, to me, it sounds overwhelming, you know, but can you guys talk a little bit about what types of systems of communication and organization you've, you know, put into place to get so many people to work together? Oh, and yeah, whoever, if Sarah, if you want to start with that one, and then we'll can go down the line. I'm sure everyone has like their own.
All the systems. We use all the systems, right? I mean, honestly, like if you want to collaborate with people, and you kind of have to say like, what's going to work for you. So I'm on like Microsoft Teams or whatever with the free, because that's what they use. We use Google Docs. We use Slack. Like, you know, I make phone calls. Basically, the way that I'm kind of looking at this for right now is like, I'm almost functioning like an assignment editor for the city, right? Like I'm just trying to get these stories placed and trying to get people interested in them. And I'm happy to do any kind of system that works for people. We also are very blessed to have a data reporter, Catlin Allo, who is incredibly organized and has really set up some really good Google Sheets. And I think that just like all collaborations, communication is key. Of course, it's important to be organized, but it's also something where we're keeping each other accountable, where we're reaching out to each other often and saying like, hey, did you get that? What's going on with this story? Are you following up with that person? And this was really great. Like a reporter at a conventional news organization the other day he's following this great story, but it started with one of the text messages, and he called me. He's like, so did you give her those resources? Like, did you end up being able to connect her with legal resources? And that's great. That would not necessarily, I wouldn't expect that would be his concern. And it's wonderful that he's like making sure that we're also doing our job to fill those information and resource gaps while he's doing his job to follow that story. So, and you know, and none of these systems are fancy. Our text messaging system is kind of fancy, but it's also SMS, so it can't be that fancy. So other than that, like it's very, very simple and just kind of constant. I'm sure Cristina and Tina and Kathy can talk. It's just freaking constant. That's like how we're doing it. We're just not doing anything else.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd jump on that. Just to say that collaboration doesn't happen without communication. Collaboration doesn't happen well, and it doesn't persist if there is not relationship building and there's not trust building, and that it all happens through communication. So while, you know, that we might say, oh Lord, please not another Slack channel, you know, things happen in Slack, things happen in email, things are happening in Google Sheets. A lot of this work and how we were going to fill the holes that needed to be filled and what somebody else was doing was happening on Google Sheets and through the Slack channel. And it was just kind of constant conversation about what do we have, what do we need, and pulling that all together. And it's not a one-off. I mean, what Colorado COVID Diaries Colorado, you know, that was a massive project, but there will be smaller now spin-off projects. Like we're working again on another larger project, but all of these will kind of come off of a hub of a successful collaboration where those communication networks have started to be established.
My only comment is that it's an interesting thing that I learned is, I told you I'm working in 16 different time zones. So there's no time for sleep, one thing. Second, you cannot push your preferred channel of communication to others. So Asians, they like to use WhatsApp. They don't like to use WhatsApp. They rather use Facebook Messenger or a Weibo. While Americans don't use WhatsApp, they like texting. While South Americans really love WhatsApp. So you have to be in all channels to communicate with all of them. You cannot force everyone to be in one same place. Of course, there is one channel, let's say a Google group, and you say, hey guys, this is the main channel. All the important news will be sent here. But in a daily basis, when you need to talk fast, you have to know, where is this person going to be at? Because you doesn't matter if I write in Slack, nobody in Latin America will read it because they're not there.
Yeah, thank you so much. And now there's a question, I'm gonna start taking audience questions. I know we don't have a ton of time left. I know a lot of people have questions out there and they're great. So we're just gonna start moving towards those. So this is one for you, Kathy, that someone had put in the chat. So this is from Tara, and she said, I'm interested to hear what kind of COVID-related investigative collaborative journalism projects your students are involved in, because we're looking for ideas for students, for stories that students can do safely and reasonably straightforward for young journalists in training. So maybe if you can just kind of elaborate, on what these investigations look like, especially working with in such unprecedented circumstances.
Hang on.
You're good.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. A lot of the restrictions that we have to deal with are, we're not allowed to send our students out to do stories right now. So a lot of our effort is really going into data work and doing reporting around COVID that is, really data and records focused. And excuse me, right now so our semesters has ended. So the biggest COVID related project that we're going to be doing is the one that starts June 1st, which is the what COVID's going to do to affordable housing. But I know that if the pandemic is still going strong in September, we're going to have students who want to do that kind of work. The tricky part for us is finding the right balance and keeping them safe as they're doing the reporting about the issues that families and others are facing. That wasn't a very good answer.
No, I think you handled it. And does anyone else want to jump in on this question of sort of how are you working within the constraints of safety and keeping your newsroom and everyone safe while also pulling off such like big projects at this time?
So that's the terrific thing about the audio diaries, right? Or the video diaries. I keep calling audio diaries, but we can't go out obviously the way that we used to go out, and those video diaries allow us to have the access in a way. I mean, they were really candid. Some of them were almost confessional. And so that allows us, again, to have that humanity within these pieces. So they're not so much from a distance. Someplace like CPR, now they can, all those video diaries are available. They can use them. They're there now. They can be used. They can be folded into the reporting. They all went to History Colorado as well. We encouraged other people to do diaries. And so we found that was a good way. Almost everybody has a phone in which they can record these, and So we found that to be a good way to get around some of the imperatives of physical distancing.
Taylor, can I add one quick
Yeah,
answer to that?
definitely.
I would love to have people, reporters, diving into the database of fact checks, because while producing them, we know there are so many stories hidden. For example, I would love to see, how did this Bill Gates hoax start? How did it spread around the world? And what about the bat suit? Where did it come from? And more, what is the platform that is big in, why is Facebook bigger? Is Facebook bigger than blogs? Or why, there are so many hidden stories in the database, and that's a lot of reporting. And as a journalist, I feel crazy because I feel like, I'm just gonna drop fact checking and just start writing, because there's so many. Today, for example, I published this small one that just popped in my eyes, and I said, I need to write it. The story about how masks is doing hypoxia. I read 11 fact checks about the same thing. I just said, I need to write this. So if any student out there is interested to doing that, the database is open. Please do.
Yeah, thanks so much. I don't know, Sarah, do you have anything to add about keeping you and your staff safe as you're doing this work?
I mean, that's our priority. Also, we are in an environment where people here in the city want us to keep them safe too. So even though we're seeing a lot of pictures of people who want plenty of attention at the Michigan Capitol and are there for that reason, we're not seeing that here in Detroit. We're not seeing people wanting to interact with folks who they don't have to interact with. I think the way that we prioritize our coverage is always the way. We either are looking at something where there's so much potential harm caused that we have to jump on it, or we're looking for something that's bubbling up again and again and again, much like Cristina was just talking about. And then you know that you want to dedicate the journalistic resources to that. But all of the reporters here in Detroit, I think, are doing a good job with really trying to stay safe and keep our news consumers safe too.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and I mean, you guys talked about all the systems you have in place, and it seems like, the systems we're using for collaborating are so much the same systems we're using in this social distance era. We're all, texting or on phone and video chat and everything anyway now, so it seems like, we have all those in place. So there was another question from the audience, and I think, Sarah, you had mentioned or had marked on there for pointed towards you. So someone had asked, if you have a community member who feels, convinced they have a useful tip for you, but that it's misinformation. So how do you tell them without risking to fracture the bond with the community? And I think we can also, expand this a little bit and just talking about the value of those community relationships when you're, launching these collaborations and pulling them off. How do we maintain those relationships? And especially in a case like this, when, you're trying to work on community members' tips and things.
So that was totally a mistake. I meant to answer it in the chat and just put that I wanted to answer it live. So I will do that quickly and then get out of the way for other people. But it's hard. I also think that this is one thing that we've always found true in Detroit, is that people have very high cognitive loads because they're just dealing with so much information and so much stress, and everybody's now in that boat and trying to assimilate tons of information that is really important and not knowing how to do it. So we are finding that kind of there's not a lot of short form explanatory journalism. Right? And that's actually something that's really needed right now. So the reporters that I work with, Joey Horan and Catlin Alu, are really spending a lot of time kind of walking people through things. And I think that taking that tact of I'm doing explanatory journalism with you while I'm trying to get you this answer has helped sometimes, but we're definitely not afraid. I mean, we moderate shit like you would moderate it in a comment, which we've never had to do, but we take that very strong position of that is not something we're hearing. We have not seen this. This is not something that we could verify. We're not trying to to baby anybody who is believing misinformation, because they can also spread it, and that's really dangerous right now. So we're really trying to help people understand what is the truth, and we've only had to block one person, and you know, and just kind of try to find a way to like make them go away. But other than that, most people have been really thankful that somebody's trying to walk them through this and help them vet information.
Yeah, that's such a great answer. And it seems just like, you know, the community building, working one-on-one with people has got to be just incredible. So this is a question I kind of want to hear from everyone. And it's also from someone in the audience, from Rachel. So she asks, do you feel there are any useful long-term journalism lessons that are coming out of the COVID situation? So, you know, are there things that we should keep when when things start to normalize somewhat? And, you know, some of these might just be like online events and things like that, but, you know, what types of lessons are you seeing, and how do you expect, you know, the lessons that we're learning now to affect collaborations and collaborative journalism in the future? And Cristina, we can start with you, and then just everyone will take a turn.
Yeah, I think there are at least 3 big lessons. First, transparency in how we do journalism. This needs to be like, this is here and this needs to stay, not only for fact checkers. This needs to be clear. How do we do our work? How do we investigate? I mean, fact checkers are 100% against off the records, you know, like powerful people said, blah, blah, blah. No, let's be transparent about how we found our sources. We'll give the links so people can redo your reporting. That's number 1. Number 2, be very, very careful with our headlines when you're dealing with moving data. I think we're right now, everything that we know about COVID is what, 5 months old? So it's actually a baby. So we cannot say for sure in the headline that men are getting more affected than women, because this is based on 4 months old database and being 1 month with data from China. So let's be careful with the headlines that are like, wow, very catchy, related to science. And we understood that science has its own timing, please. And I'd say, of course, and this is not because this is the summit, but I've been saying this, there is no other way out for journalists than collaborating. There's nothing. I mean, we are all going to die if we try to fight this information by ourselves. We just cannot do that. We need to collaborate.
Yeah, thank you. And Kathy, if you want to take a turn on this question, you know, what are you looking forward?
Sure. I just want to reinforce what Cristina said. I mean, there had been conversations about, you know, facts matter before the arrival of the pandemic. Facts right now can save people's lives. So I'm hoping that going forward, people will realize that. I hope I'm not being naive. One thing that the technology that we're now using for reporting and especially for collaborating, I hope we'll do going forward is every newsroom now, no matter its size, is having to use WebEx or Zoom or something to communicate. People are learning the power of that technology, and what I'm hoping is that it will, as people are more familiar with it and have embraced it, it means that creating collaborations that didn't exist going forward, or pulling in some of those smaller newsrooms that Tina talked about, you know, that have been devastated, you know, now they, I hope, will be more comfortable reaching out and working together as a force multiplier for their journalism. Those would be the 2 big things for me.
Yeah, thanks Thanks for that. And so, yeah, Sarah, if you want to take that.
Sure. I think that everybody, reporters and non-reporters alike, have understood what it feels like to be inside of an information gap during this crisis, how scary it is to not have information that you need to be able to live your life. And I hope that we remember that there are people who are dealing with that feeling all the time, and that they're in our communities, and that we should serve them, because it is a terrifying and disempowering place to be inside of an information gap. And so I hope that we can hold on to that understanding and that feeling and carry that forward with us.
All right, great. And then Tina, if you want to, take the same question of what can we learn moving forward?
Yeah, that was terrific. I think that's very true. It's very disorienting to be in an information gap, and likewise to be overwhelmed by so much information. It's difficult to discern what reality is anymore. So my thanks to everyone on this panel for the work that you're doing. It's remarkable, vital work. I would say that, yeah, there is no going back. Newsrooms are not going to be flush again, and it's just that's how we are responding to the situation on the ground will have lasting effects. So I can tell you right now that, there are currently 40 newsrooms in Colorado that are doing something that would have been unheard of 2 years ago, in which they're uploading their work that they're willing to share onto StoryShare so that other newsrooms can take that work and can put it on their sites and help better inform audiences, because we can't do it. Collaboration allows us to work on things together that we could not do alone. And as cliche as it is, there's just strength in that, and it is a benefit if we are using that strength wisely, strategically, if we're aware of those who have been left out, the fault lines that exist that have been exposed by the pandemic, and how do we target that? How do we use the strength of numbers to better inform communities? There's so much potential here. And it's high stakes, and it's also very exciting. And so I would say, yes, we're not going back. I think that working particularly on the COVID diaries piece, and I know I talk about the video diaries quite a bit, but the video diaries are a lesson that I've had to learn again and again and again in all the years that I've done journalism, which is that practice of getting out of the way so that people can tell their stories. Let people speak. And it's a very powerful thing to get out of the way so that people can tell their stories, so that people are empowered by their stories, so that connections are built across audiences, across communities. And, we are, for that moment, for that story, for that project, able to occupy someone else's space. And that, I think, oddly, ironically, in a time when we cannot be together, that, I think, if we keep that in mind, allows us to practice something that we may not have practiced very well in the past.
Yeah, so thank you so much. Yeah, I think that was a great answer from everyone. I know we're having a few difficulties with video right now, so it's just me. Mine's all the one on video here. But I also think that that's such a great question and such great answers that we can kind of, wrap this up on. We're almost to the very end of our time. And I think, all of our speakers have done, such a great job just outlining the incredible work that they're doing. And also just giving us something to, to look forward to as we move into the future, having come from, such a difficult challenge to report on. So So with that, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone for like the incredible discussion. It's really, truly inspiring to see, you know, how quickly everyone has adapted and, you know, been able to tell the biggest story of our lifetime. So yeah, thank you so much. And so I'm just going to turn it back over to Stephanie. Thank you guys.